The Kuminga-Kerr feud has hit an inflection point, and the Warriors are right in the middle of it. We get into it next on Beyond the Locker Room. It has reached the boiling point where Jonathan Kuminga and Steve Kerr seem like they cannot reach some sort of working relationship, let's put it that way. The word is on the street, the Kuminga camp has asked for a trade. They want out of the Bay Area, and we'll see how, we're now going to be going through for the next 4 to 6 weeks perhaps of trade rumors. I'm not a trade rumor type of guy, but it is what it is, and this discussion is part of the discussion. It can't be helped. But I'm going to go through it, and I'll give you my take on it afterwards, but I'm going to give you kind of the background from both sides of things. So let's start from the beginning, at least. When he got drafted in 2021, 7th pick of the draft, Jonathan Kuminga, young, raw, athletic guy, very twitchy. He showed a lot of promise as being a potentially potent offensive player. Kuminga, as I said before, drafted in 2021. He played a key role as a versatile wing for Golden State as they won a championship in 2022. Was kind of a key guy in that role as well too, being able to defend a lot of key wings to help out Wiggins in that run. Development under King over Kerr over the next seasons, he showed growth, especially in the 23-24 season, where he averaged 16 a game, almost 5 rebounds, like 4-point rebounds. But then also drew a lot of coaching criticism from Kerr about his decision making and fit. Then afterwards in 2024-2025, which would be last season, inconsistent in the rotation, which was a bit of a shock considering the season he had previously. Kerr has role kind of fluctuating, sometimes starting, sometimes bench. Also depending on the matchup, he will come in. They felt that he was causing some spacing concerns. Already have Draymond Green on the court, so it was difficult to have him and Green on the court together. And also adding Butler to it did not help as well too, who's not known to be a 3-point shooter. So multiple media reports noted coaching staff wants, quote, smarter team play from him, which is always a bit of a loaded term. And then trust and issues and minutes came into play. His on or off usage and the perception of Kerr's trust issues have been a root of concern, with discussions around, quote, basketball IQ, which is a term that always makes me feel icky inside. And then Kerr tried different lineups without him as well too. Now, let's go back a little further now, because there is one key inflection point, which was this past offseason. This past offseason, after a long restricted free agency standoff, Kuminga signed a 2-year deal going for about $48 million. An extension in late September, so it was right near the start of the training camp, so you could see where things were going. The deal has a team option for the second year, and the structure made him trade eligible starting January the 15th. Key date, January the 15th. As I'm recording this right now, today is January the 16th, I believe, as I'm recording this. Reports suggest Kuminga felt pressured into the deal and didn't get the longer contract he wanted or control that he wanted. So obviously, I think he wanted to actually have an option to be able to get out if he needed to, but that didn't come to play as a restricted free agent. Now, Kuminga's played, to go the other way, Kuminga's played in the postseason and has had some really interesting moments, but also some very bright moments. So, for example, in 2025 playoffs, when he was healthy, Kuminga showed he can be an elite scorer when he's ready, averaging 15 points, 15.3 points a game, 2.5 rebounds, and 1.3 assists, shooting about 48% from the field and 40% from 3 over 8 games. So he's shown that he can get that part done. He had a career-high 30 points in a key Western Conference game against Minnesota last year, and showing that he can really play big in the high leverage, high moments. Career playoff averages overall is 7 points per game in 34 games. As I mentioned before, he had an increased role in last season's playoffs, and he had a key moments also in the playoff championship run in 2022. Now, where things get interesting, where it's hard to really figure out where things are and what's going on within the organization. They had a game the other night on Amazon Prime. Draymond Green was the special guest of the group after the game. This is after the this is after Portland game, after they whooped Portland. So he had some, I would say, glowing comments about Kuminga. So, he's been very supportive of Kuminga as well as some other guys on the team as well too, including Butler. Green called Kuminga's two-way game incredible, pointing to his defense and offensive growth. He said he was at an elite level when playing tough matchups. Now, Green, Curry, and Butler have emphasized that Kuminga isn't a distraction and is respected in the locker room despite the trade demand and benching. Now, by the way, he's been benched now for, I think, 14 games and counting at this point. Green specifically called him a consummate teammate and said everyone believes in his long-term upside. I think Green also made a joke pretty much saying like, hey, he's better than me essentially because I couldn't handle things as well as he's had. There's been some criticism from ex-players, which I find interesting. Rashard McCants is one, and he's not one I really rely to on, when it comes to certain opinions, but he's an ex-NBA player, and hey, he's had his experiences. I respect that. Austin Rivers had his own thoughts about it just recently about how the Warriors are handling the situation, Steve Kerr specifically. I've heard scenarios with, I don't want to play any names, but I think there was some stuff on All the Smoke podcast even last year, I believe it was, where they had some discussions about him, and I think also too some other podcasts, Gilbert Arenas, my apology, had some really interesting thoughts about Steve Kerr's handling of the situation last year. So, this year, just to kind of give you the baseline here, this year, for the times he did play, he's had 18 games he's played. He's averaged 11.8 points, 6.2 rebounds, and 2.6 assists, shooting around 43%. This is prior to his benching that started on December 18th. His career regular season is 12.5 points, 4.2 rebounds, 1.8 assists, over 276 games with the Golden State Warriors. And I mentioned his career playoff stats. Now, why has it become the way it's become? Now, Kerr has benched him multiple times, even when healthy. And this season, Kuminga hasn't played since December 18th, as I mentioned, sitting out 14 plus games, 14 counting, despite being eligible. Now, the injury status status is murky. Officially, he's been listed out with an injury or soreness at different points, but many suspect, it's more of a DMP, a coaching decision, than it is a health issue. Now, everything went to a head as Kuminga now has is eligible for being traded, and Kuminga has formally requested to be traded. And I think pretty much he's reached his boiling point and, looking for a fresh start. Now, the Warriors have recently found success without Kuminga going on a run, with which critics say may motivate Kerr to stick with what's working. The locker room and the front office definitely have different takes. So this is where I find it interesting. This is why you have Beyond the Locker Room, folks. Because we're now getting beyond the locker room. Let's start in the locker room, though. The locker room seems to be cool with Kuminga. The vets, Butler, Curry, and of course I mentioned Draymond Green's comments. I'll post those comments down below. They are straight. They said the young man's been a professional, comes in, first man in, last man out type of thing. He comes and does his work. He's very gregarious. He's chilling with the guys. So he hasn't been out there pouting or anything like that. So for everybody who wants to jump down that road, that is not the case according to the vets. And you can say what you want about Draymond Green, love him, hate him, whatever the case may be, but he pretty much is a straight shooter. Like, he ain't coming with no BS. Steph Curry, you know what his reputation's like. And Jimmy Butler, whatever you want to say about him, man, he's about his own business and he respects what the young man's about. So that's the locker room take. Now we go further up the stairs. We get to the front office, to the highest office, Joe Lacob, who seems to be frustrated at times with the situation. That's what the San Francisco Gate, and I'll post that link below about the details about that. So between Kerr and the upper management, there definitely seems to be some friction on, and the locker room of what the thoughts are about Kuminga's situation. Now, Kuminga's situation is escalated for numerous reasons, from different opinions. Strong but inconsistent early career usage under Kerr. Injuries and role changes in the late in the last season. Contract extension tension around that. Diminished minutes, of course. Hey, the minutes is what it's about, man. The minutes is what it's about, leading to the benching. And trade requests once eligible, which has happened now. And there's mixed media and locker room narratives about the injury versus coaching decisions. So it's not pretty, in the Bay Area at the moment. Now, as I said before, despite all that, teammates stand, publicly support him, and continue to praise his character. And he still has meaningful performances upside on both ends of the floor. So where does that leave us at this point? So here's my thoughts. I look at it this way. If Steve Kerr and the Golden State Warriors did not want him, they could have moved him a long time ago. There were opportunities to move him. There was rumors with him, in this case, in a Siakam deal a few years back. There's rumors with him with all sorts of deals. When the restricted free agent came, they didn't really have to sign him. Now, they're going to say on principle, be it Steve Kerr or who's their GM again? I lost in my mind in this case. He replaced the man's on TV now. The ex-player. I can't remember, played for Chicago. But nonetheless, the Golden State brass had the opportunity to say, you know what, we're going to move on. Now, I get it. He's like 23 years old at the time, and you're looking here as like, dude, we ain't trying to, move off a 23-year-old and cut losses. Fair enough. But if you're going to, but to have the guy sit on the bench and essentially punish him because he's not playing in the system, yet the players who, I respect their opinions because they're there with the guy every day, is saying like, yo, the dude's putting in the work and he's had a good attitude. So, sometimes every guy's not going to fit a cookie cutter situation into the system. And I grant you, everybody's not like that. But you're the coach, Steve Kerr. You got to work with have some flexibility to work with different personalities and different styles of play to some extent. You're going to tell me Jimmy Butler is the perfect fit in the Golden State offense? Like, come on now. Jimmy's like the survey things, hold the ball, look around, wait for a double team. That's not moving the ball and cutting away from it as much. Now, doesn't mean Jimmy Butler can't do it. Of course he can do it. I've seen him watch on Golden State to do it. So it's not like he's capable of it. But at the same time, you give Jimmy Butler, a little leeway to do what he has to do. Now, I grant you, Jimmy Butler's got a much more seasoned resume, than Jonathan Kuminga. But if you think Jonathan Kuminga is part of the future, you got to let him grow and, spread his wings a little bit to see what he can do. If we had that mentality, we wouldn't have the Steph Curry we have today. Like, you have to let young players grow a little bit and give them some leeway to try, to do some things that might help you lift your team up in the future. So if you're not willing to do so, move off the man. To have the man sitting there and pretty much in basketball purgatory at 23-year-olds, that's a bit scary if you're a 23-year-old. It's like, yo, what the heck? You're killing the dude's career, never mind his value. So, like, I mean, and the part that I think where I get really frustrated with Steve Kerr is when things start going bad in the playoffs, then he hits then he does the break glass in case of an emergency situation, and then up comes Jonathan Kuminga out of the blue. Oh, now you need him now when you're down 2-1 in a series. Oh, now you need him now when it's like, okay, I got a couple guys that are hurt or can't guard a particular matchup now. Now you think his athleticism is good enough for you. Like, give me a break. Enough with the games. So I don't blame the young man for saying, I'm out. Like, I want out. He wanted out from before, and you guys still matched the offer. Then they're going to have him sitting on the bench now for the last 14 games. So it had to give. I wish the young man some luck. I will post some links down below on potential trade options out there from Bobby Marks at ESPN of that discussion of what the possibilities are with different teams. I won't get into it here. But it is a really unfortunate situation. I think, like, this idea, you hear this things like, oh, Kuminga's not really this type of player or that type of player. And I'm always of the opinion, do we really know? Like, I would love to see a season where he just gets 30-plus minutes a game. Let's find out if he's what you guys say he is. Because I got sneaking suspicion probably you have a 20-point scorer sitting on your bench. That's what I think. But hey, who knows? But I guess playing him spot minutes or having DMPs for like 14 games straight, that will sort the situation out. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. Once again, as always, man, I appreciate the support. You can like, comment, subscribe down below here on YouTube. You can also find me, as always, on X, Blue Sky, Facebook, and hey, we're on IG, baby. We on IG, man. So check me out on Instagram. I'm always putting some, clips of the show there and some other stuff as well too. So check me out there as well. And as always, guys, I appreciate it, the support. Keep it locked. Talk to you next time. Peace.